We're halfway through Foundation's second season, and at a point where things are really picking up with regards to the pace and the plot. As always, I'm Al, this is the Geek in Review, and I'm going to be running over some theories, some ideas, and hopefully some predictions about what's going to happen for the rest of the season and maybe beyond that. So as always, let's get to it. The coverage of Silo, I'll be dropping theory videos for the rest of the season, as I really enjoyed coming up with ideas and theories and discussing them with you in the comments section. Now, before I get into it, I want to make it clear that I did read, I think it was 3 of the Foundation novels when I was a lot younger, and I did read the first novel again just before the first season ended, but decided not to reread the others, as by the end of season 1, it was pretty clear that they were going to take the show in different directions. But before I get into any of this, I just want to say thanks for taking the time to choose to watch this video. I really appreciate it, and if you haven't done it already, please subscribe to the channel, and if you make it all the way to the end, leave a like as well. So I do remember some things from novels, but not everything. Put it this way, I totally forgot who Bel Rios was, and it was only after the name was mentioned a few times, in context of who he was in the show, that it sort of rang a bell. But as I said, the show has diverged from the books quite a bit by this point, so just because someone shows up roughly where they are in the books, or maybe kind of in the same role in terms of the plot, it doesn't mean they'll do the same things in the same order or necessarily have the same outcome. But in this video, I want to discuss the comparisons between the Cleonic Dynasty and the Foundation, namely Savlor, Gaal, and Harry, who I'm going to be referring to as the trio from now on, which I'll explain in a little bit, but mostly because it saves me time saying 3 names. Because one thing that I realised when I was putting this video together, it was supposed to be about how has Harry come back, but I did realise that, there's a trio there, and there's a trio of clones with Day, Dusk, and Dawn. And I think there are quite a lot of comparisons, or maybe sort of mirroring each other, that I really think's worth pointing out and exploring. I did mention in the episode 5 review that Harry, Gaal, and Salvor are all part of the same family, essentially. And of course, the clones are sort of all part of the same family as well. And one of the comparisons that sort of stood out for me is Salvor wasn't born naturally. She was conceived using the genetic material of Gaal and Raish that was taken on their journey on the way to Terminus. So that's sort of a light comparison to the clones, but I'm going to get more into that in a second. Because when you do think about it, the way that the trio has been set up, and the way that this has now been framed, is they are their kind of own dynasty, potentially. And I wonder if the show is actually going to build towards this. Because as the Cleons literally drift apart and the Empire falls, these 3 are going to need to do the opposite and put aside their differences to unite and create the second Foundation. And I think that's an interesting position for both parties to be in, mirroring each other, and there are a lot, and I mean a lot, of comparisons. And they do reinforce the comparisons in episode 5 when they mention the most logical and likely reason for Harry's return is that Cleon's cloning tech has fallen into someone else's hands, or it has also been developed, because we've seen the Foundation have improved their jump drives and they've got personal auras, and they're at least slightly ahead of the Empire, if not significantly. Also, Harry's past has played a bigger role with flashbacks to his childhood and previous partners, and we find out in episode 5 that Cleon's past is also important with the missing memories. Day having the ability to manipulate the other's memories also compares to Harry not remembering how he became flesh and blood as well. Now, there have been scenes from episode 6 posted online already. So in episode 6, we do see some scenes that looks as if Harry is being put on trial, sort of, or at least being judged. And this calls back to the days of the trial on the Spiral we stay in the last season as well. Now there's no real direct comparison in the show yet to Seraph as far as I can see, but we're going to have to wait and find out what happens with that. Another huge comparison that occurred to me is the plan of the original Cleon to create the Dynasty. This was essentially his plan to ensure the future of the Empire, whereas Harry has developed his plan to save humanity and kind of create a new empire with a foundation. And I don't think that all these similarities or comparisons are accidental. The question for me when I was writing this is, will any of the trio realise the similarities that's going on with the clones? And if so, what sort of discussion is that going to create among them or the people around them? Harry's basically building his empire as the current one falls. So in effect, he's replacing the system that already exists, or at least the system that's failing itself. And another comparison is replacing one ruler with another in a grand plan, because both Harry and the original Cleon have pretty huge plans that hopefully go well into the future. In replacing the sort of empire with the Foundation, I do wonder throughout the galaxy how on board everyone is going to be with this. Because some people might not see this drastically that much change when you think about it. But I'm curious to know what you guys think, so let me know in the comments below. Now, although there isn't really a direct live action comparison to Seraph at the moment, we have seen flashbacks of Harry's past with his wife, and that was in the same episode that Seraph was introduced. And again, I don't think that that's a coincidence. These two people in these two stories are definitely mirroring each other, or at least the opposites. And I don't think it just extends directly to the trio and the clones. If you look at other characters such as Belle, Rios, and Polly, there's quite a few comparisons that can be drawn as well. Both of them are soldiers and they see the Empire or Foundation differently from the others around them. Polly thinks the Foundation maybe isn't sticking to what the original Secnd plan is, at least before he entered the vault a few episodes ago. And Bel Rios, although he wasn't in the most recent episode, is certainly aware of the Empire's flaws and what's kind of going on behind the scenes. Now, Bell is a general, and I guess you could say Polly is sort of the same, or at the very least a soldier representing the Foundation's belief. Now, one character that I've not really spoke about because I wanted to see what they were going to do with him is Callie. The last time we seen her was when Harry, or live action Harry, was brought back to us. And all we know is she's definitely responsible for Harry's return. And I think that this is her ensuring that the Selden plan works, the same way that Demerzelle is seemingly doing the same for the clones, and making sure that the original Cleons plan works to ensure the continuation of the Empire. Now, one thing about Callie that is interesting if you go back and watch this episode, once they land on the planet that she's on, Una's world, they don't detect any life signs. But after Harry's brought back, they detect his life signs straight away. So that makes me think a few things. That one, she's either masking or hiding her life signs. Or two, maybe Demerzelle isn't the only robot that's out there. Now, apart from the fact that you can't detect her life signs, there's no real proof to support that. But I suppose, given the fact that if this is the same person, she's hundreds of years old, unless, of course, she is a clone or some sort of copy, but I don't think that that's the case. Because, as I mentioned a few moments ago, they sort of explain kind of that Harry is most likely a clone, and my original theory on how Harry came back was sort of similar to how the Vault Harry explained it. So my first theory was that Harry had been reconstituted exactly the same way that the Vault can reconstitute matter. And that to me did make sense until you think about the fact that the Foundation is competing or exceeding the Empire when it comes to technology. So if we are going along the idea or the train of thought that the trio and the clones are mirrors or opposites of each other, it makes sense that Harry is most likely some sort of clone. Also, one thing that's occurred to me is we're also assuming that there's not a version of Harry that's no longer in the Prime Radiant or the knife. And I'm not talking about the Prime Radiant that's on Terminus, I'm talking about the one that was on the Beggar from episode 1. But we don't 100% know that for sure. And I don't think they'll ever really explain that, because bringing Harry back in flesh and blood and then putting him back into an object like the Prime Radiant or the knife or something else would seem like a bit of a step backwards. But yeah, Harry having his sort of own robot and being a clone, that is really big when you think about the implications for it. But as I said, we don't 100% know any of this for sure. We also don't really know if the Vault Harry and the live action Harry are aware of each other. The Vault Harry kind of suggests that he might know about the other one, but he doesn't explicitly say it. And given the fact that the Foundation's plan is all sort of compartmentalised so no one knows exactly what's going on, I don't think he would admit that there was another version of him running about in the real world, because that would really tip a lot of people off. Also, you've got to remember that some people at this point in the universe see Harry Seldon as a prophet or a religious figure, and having the real guy coming back, that's going to cause a problem for the Cleons as well. Because how do you fight someone that can't die, essentially, or at least a myth that can't die? But stepping back for a little moment to the question of why would you bring Harry Seldon back in the real world, I think given the fact that he was trapped for over 100 years when Gaal and Savlor were in stasis, it's probably to get the second Foundation back on track to where it should be. But how did Callie know about all of this if she's been hiding on a cave on a backwater planet, even if she is a robot or anything else? That's a question that they're going to need to answer as well. Because on Terminus, when they were in the vault and they asked Vault Harry how he knew about Holborn Mallow, he just said that a ghost told him. So I assumed that he was referring to Callie, but we don't 100% know for sure yet. And I really do hope that they answer this and they don't leave us hanging to the end of the season or beyond this, because I think that is going to annoy fans. I know a lot of people aren't happy with the pace of the show at the moment or the changes from the book, and we don't really know where it's going, at least at the moment. But as always, I want to know what you guys think. Do you think Callie's a robot? How do you think she brought Harry back? Maybe he's a robot as well, maybe he's a clone, maybe he's somewhere in between. At the moment on the show, we're sort of at the tipping point where Seraph has just found out about Demerzelle. And we haven't seen anyone really outside Trantor mention robots because it's been so long ago that they existed or that they were about, no one would ever really consider that there was one amongst our mists, let alone two. But I do think there's huge comparisons here between the trio and the Cleons. Also, I want to know what you guys think of the comparisons between Belle and Polly or Constant, because I'm sure we're going to get to see other sort of members or soldiers or representatives of the Foundation, and I think it'd be very interesting if Belle and Polly met and how they would react to each other, because I'm not sure exactly what angle the show is taking at the moment. We're not getting too much focus on the main Foundation or the Seldon plan, it seems to be on the characters themselves. But let me know your theories. Am I right? Am I wrong? What do you think in the comments below? Or you can reach out to me on Twitter at the Geeks Reviews. If you've made it this far, please leave a like on the video, and if you haven't done it already, subscribe to the channel. As always, my name's Al. Thanks for watching.